Are there particular sectors that are leading the way, do you think, that are further ahead with the whole sort of data adoption and how that feeds into running buildings and improving the experience for users?
So I think there are a couple of things to say on this. So firstly, I think sectors, as we've traditionally seen them, are starting to blur a lot. So there isn't such a clear line between all of them. But that said, if you look at a typical office of a few years ago, if you've got a 25-year lease and people are there and they don't want to move job, then actually it's not a very liquid market. It changes very, very slowly. So the sectors that have been ahead in this are the consumer focused ones. So retail is the best example, hospitality. But I think that's all starting to change. And we've seen with things like co-working in offices, everything is moving significantly quicker. So we're having to catch up very fast. And if you look pre-COVID, a lot of the people being employed into the office market was actually from the hospitality sector rather than the traditional property sector. So I think that we're changing very, very fast. I think COVID will have accelerated that. The sectors themselves are certainly at different stages, but I think there's a blur and a crossover between those as we move forward.
I think one of the key things we've seen is that we're not really focused on one metric. It always has to be the whole picture. So we're very good internally at having different sector meetings. So we have office, industrial, retail, build to rent. We have those sector meetings, but there's also a few of us that span across the board. So when we see tools or analysis or the thought pattern happening in a sector, it's like, well, how can we address that to other sectors? So there's things we can sort of learn from those sectors internally, but we're also trying to look at, it's not just one metric, it's about how all the metrics, when they stick together, what's that rich picture that the data is trying to tell us. So we might want to have a look at a new, in retail, new footfall type system, but we won't just be looking at that. We'll be looking at that in linking it in with things like Twitter reactions and car park availability. It's looking at all those other elements. It's just, I don't think we're seeing anything in isolation anymore. So that means that we need more data to give us more insight. And we're putting a lot of time we're putting into data tools internally now.
I want to be able to book something immediately at the time. If I want to book a table in a restaurant, I want to know then and there if it's available. I'm too impatient to have a call back even on the same day. Same with booking a hotel in the UK. I'll book it on an app on the way to the hotel, just so I can compare prices. So I think from hospitality, it's spreading into offices in the sense that if I wanted a desk for an hour or half a day in a new city that I was moving to, I'd want to be able to book it minutes before I got there, turn up, use it seamlessly. And I think COVID has accelerated that because people are used to QR codes now. They know how easy it is to search something quickly and book it. And similarly with people that didn't used to do online shopping, they're now used to that. So I think that trend should accelerate in the fact that we want things on demand easily.
What we've looked to make sure is when we've been bringing in some of the tech for that, instant gratification, that our supply chain, our partners, it's not technology we're forcing on them. We talk to them about, if we're looking to put this in to do this, and how does that feed into your sort of supply chain? So, and I think having those open conversations means that when we're getting any sort of onboarding issues, they can feed back. It's not just here's the app or solution, you need to deliver it. It's trying to work with people to make sure we're getting that sort of feedback. I think that's quite key. And like I said before, we bring in a lot of data, but we focus on the key metrics that asset manager is focused on, or those people in the supply chain are focused on for that time. So all the other data metrics are there for later on analysis that we can do the big sweep up. It's probably not per quarter, it's probably over a longer time horizon. So I think we're looking for those trigger points. What is our sort of level of availability that we want to get to, or service level? So you can sort of red, amber, green those and track those from time to time. And I think it's trying to cut through that noise.
The other thing to remember is, and this probably applies more to office than anything else, but you could apply it to other sectors, that when people actually go back to work full time, the landscape is going to be a lot different. How people's working week pans out could be completely different. And what will be really interesting is collecting data around that to see how that evolves, because I don't think anyone really knows exactly what's going to happen there. But certainly there will be changes, I think, and tracking and monitoring those changes is a very important thing to do, I think.
where do you start with data? And I would argue this place to start is not with data. So you've got to know what you're trying to find out and why. There are some benefits in collecting data if you don't have a clear view, but generally speaking, if you just go out to collect data, you'll spend all day collecting data and then you'll get completely blinded. So what do you want to know is the first thing. The second thing is, I think as we go into this world of blended work, some people are going to go back to the office 5 days a week. Some people are going to work at home 5 days a week, and some people are going to want something different or somewhere in between. It'll come down to your job type, your type of company, the culture. You may well find 2 identical companies competing in different ways. So one has an amazing office to attract people to, the other one capitalizes on reduced costs and access to a much broader sense. And there are upsides and downsides to both of those. The problem is that means that from an office point of view or an occupier, an employer point of view, you're now having to collect data on people when they're in their homes, when they're working, and how far do you take that? So there are a lot of challenges that come out of that as we move forward.
And what about the monetary cost and the returns, the investment aspect of implementing new data solutions?
My only hurdles were coming across trying to demonstrate that it wouldn't be a complete waste, i.e. we could implement it and then there would be a resistance to people downloading it, putting their details in, and therefore it just sits there as a unused piece of software and then becomes redundant and we stop using it. So I think the challenge isn't necessarily about the cost, but I think we are all beginning to understand benefits of new technology. It is just making sure that it's used properly, everybody is communicated properly so that everybody understands how it's going to be used, and that sort of big question on data privacy, security, who owns it, that sort of thing. Once those are answered, then everyone gets pretty comfortable.
We've now got efficiency that we've brought in from our front to back office. We're using the same data from managing agent through to valuer. And I think the time saved by those people in that chain means that they can spend more time getting closer to the occupier, right? So we're trying to use that data as much as possible to create the information rather than people put it into Excel or into Word to create the output report. So there's a lot of benefit through there, but I think there's that element around net zero carbon and ESG. There's regulation there. There's the amount of transparency we need to have. I think as an owner of choice, we're trying to drive that agenda.
From my experience, something has to have a benefit in order to justify its existence within an organisation and deliver a return. And it's we have clients that are all different sizes, and the return on investment can be much quicker with one client over another, and it can be much more of a necessity with one client over another. So we mentioned build to rent, and the expectation from a tenant in a build to rent building is that they have an app on their phone when they move in. They can book things through that app. We spoke about brands. That app has to be able to be white labeled for for whatever the branding is behind that platform or scheme or development, and that's a given, and sometimes the residential market is further ahead and things like that, but we have to be able to now offer it in the commercial market as well, not just offices but retail, the whole managing of outlet centres and shopping centres. Sometimes we drop down into different sectors, but they're all benefits that come out of each applying it to each sector.
That's great. Thank you very much all for giving up your time and your input. Thanks to Yardi for asking Placetech to do this today.